Sure. I'm going to 1, 2, 3. Okay, great. Thank you, Chris, for getting us rolling. I'm Michael Waite, and this is another edition of the OpenShift Commons Briefings, our Operator Hours TV show, which is streaming live. I'm now going to do what I like to call share my whole screen. And I'm going to start from the first slide here. It's not going to be slide heavy, but I did want to put up the intro slide here today. We are lucky enough to have our good friends from Kong with us, the cloud connectivity company, and they're going to be talking about why API management is dead. Some people might think that's somewhat of a controversial title, which I think is a perfect segue for this conversation here today. And they're going to talk about why we need a new approach. So we have the field CTO, Melissa van der Heck, joining us from overseas in the UK, and we have Claudio Acquaviva, one of their lead solutions architects, joining us from a much warmer place down in Brazil than it is up here in the northeast of the United States. Melissa and Claudio, welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Mike. So excited to be here.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Very happy to be here. Yeah.
Yes, and I'd much rather be down there. I think the next time we do something like this, you should invite us to film it down in your office, Claudio.
Yeah, absolutely.
Getting a little tired.
I'll start with you, Mike. I want some snow.
Getting a little tired of shoveling snow. So Kong, King Kong, what's in a name, Melissa? You know, when I was looking up interesting facts about Kong the other day, I typed in Kong, and you can imagine there were all kinds of references to things that were, something other than your company. Tell us a little bit about the company. What's in the name? How did you guys, when is this a 20-year-old company? Did you start in 2019? Why don't we learn a little bit about that?
That's a great place to begin, Mike. Let me tell you a little bit about what we do, and then we'll talk about how we came to be the company. Across Kong, we are on a mission to power connections to build a reliable digital world. What does that mean? I'm sure you're asking. Mike, everybody watching, I want you to close your eyes. Picture the night sky. If you've ever seen the line of the Milky Way, imagine that beautiful, beautiful image. What you're seeing in front of you is 1 billion trillion. That's a 1 with 21 zeros. You're seeing 1 billion trillion stars in the observable universe. That is an incomprehensible amount, I think. You can open your eyes again now.
Oh, no. I actually cheated. I opened them early.
All right, we'll start again. So we have 40 times more bytes of data on planet Earth than there are stars in the observable universe. It's quite a challenge that we have within IT at the moment. And it's not just that we have more data, but our data is more and more distributed. There are an estimated 50 billion connected smart devices today. The average enterprise uses over 900 different applications, from on-premise, SaaS, different cloud environments. And it's not just that our data is more distributed, but we are creating more and more services. We are in the midst of this relentless trend to move from the monolithic applications and processes to increasingly smaller, more fine-grained capabilities. What we're seeing actually now is a shift. The way that a company differentiates it today is now about how they connect all of these distributed things together. It's how they combine and how they assemble and reassemble all of these fine-grained capabilities and microservices. And this is what Kong does. We power that connectivity layer, or connectivity fabric, if you will. So Kong is a service connectivity platform. That means we, and Claudio will talk a second about story, how we came to be being the world's most widely used open source API gateway. But we also power microservices, service mesh, Kubernetes, everything coming next, trends that we might not even have dreamt to imagine about yet. We are powering the service connectivity platform that allows you to have this reliable connectivity layer.
And Melissa, if I can just, so when you say Kubernetes, I work for Red Hat, and as it turns out, we have a Kubernetes platform called OpenShift. I'm assuming that your solutions work on Red Hat OpenShift. Absolutely.
In fact, a customer that I work very closely with, one of the largest retailers in the world, they're a fashion retailer, and they sell to 202 markets through their online platforms, and they're running Kong in OpenShift to power all of this e-commerce and power all of that online shopping experience.
Okay, great. And do you guys have an operator? I know Red Hat spent quite a bit of investment in working with our partners to build operators on OpenShift. Not being the most technically savvy person in the world, I'm pretty sure that the operators are pretty important for improving day two supportability of OpenShift and business apps. So you guys have an operator in our registry and catalog?
Yeah. I can take this one, Melissa. Yeah, absolutely. We provide a Kong operator. As a matter of fact, it's part of the Kong supporting Kubernetes, not just having Kong running a Kubernetes pod, but as a matter of fact, just supporting Kong in a much broader way, like supporting operators, supporting Helm charts, CRDs, Knative, certification manager, and so on and so forth. Then that's how we say that we support Kubernetes, not just about to have the API gateway or subs mesh running as a pod. And then again, absolutely, operators is fully supported by us. Yeah.
Okay, and so Claudio, you're a solutions architect down there. Can you tell us a little bit about your role at the company and some of your experience?
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been working at Kong for almost 2 years and a half now as a solution architect. And as such, I'm responsible for helping out our customers and partners and users with designing reference architectures, taking care of these modernization process, like workload transfer from, let's say, on-premise to multi-cloud deployment, this kind of thing. It's a fun job, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. I was a solutions architect for the first 2 years when I started at Red Hat back in 2002. It was a little bit different back then. I mean, we had 260. We had 260 people worldwide. It's things have certainly changed. How about yourself, Melissa? You're the field CTO. What are your roles there at Kong?
Oh my gosh, Mike, I love my job. I have the privileged position of working with a lot of different companies worldwide, and what motivates me and kind of my primary focus with them is inspiring that business change through APIs, through microservices. I think everyone who's familiar with APIs, I'm sure we can all go back a few years and remember the time that we spent educating people on what APIs were, and then kind of finally reaching that milestone where business people would start understanding that, maybe not understanding what APIs are, but understanding that joining the API economy was good for business. And there are very many reasons why joining the API economy is great for business, all types of enterprises. But what is equally impactful is that every single one of us, pretty much wherever we are on the planet, our experiences, whether or not we know it, are powered by connectivity. They are joined together. Everything we do digitally or even manually, there's some process somewhere that is enabled through APIs and through microservices. One of my favorite examples, actually, I'm sure we all remember kind of at the beginning of the various lockdowns that we had globally last year. In the UK, I know various parts of the US and elsewhere. I wonder which other countries this happened in. Do you remember going to the supermarket and seeing all these empty shelves everywhere, and then just people with their phones out taking pictures of essentially the apocalypse in the supermarket? There being the epic toilet roll shortages. In the UK, what we saw was that there was this increased demand because of COVID to deliver PPE and medical equipment to hospitals, to all the staff who needed it. And there was the need to continue to deliver all these supplies to the supermarkets, but there was a huge reduction in the amount of trucks that were on the road because the drivers, so many of them were isolating or like not able to work because of the virus. And the UK's largest government department used APIs to work in an automated way with the UK authority that issues truck driver licenses, so that we could very, very rapidly get more trucks back out on the road and redeliver this PPE and redeliver the toilet roll. This, for me, is what I do and what motivates me. And I think what is so amazing and impactful about the work that we all do is this connectivity has a fundamental human impact as well as a business one in everything that we see.
And we're as a reminder for everyone, we're live right now on Facebook and Twitch and YouTube. And if anyone has questions while we're here with our friends from Kong, please feel free to put them in chat, and our production team will make sure that they get them in here and they'll be addressed. It did strike a chord when you were talking about what it was like at the beginning of the pandemic. I remember going to the grocery stores and not being able to find, any of those types of essentials we were just talking about. Matter of fact, I actually went into a gas station one day and there was someone stealing the rolls of toilet paper out of the bathroom from the wall dispenser.
Oh my gosh.
It was an absolute pandemonium over here for toilet paper. So Kong, but you haven't always been Kong, right?
Yeah.
We were talking about your founders and how they started in the basement. Was
Yep.
it was Augie and Marco, right? Didn't they
Yes.
start the company in their basement and were living off of canned tuna fish and spaghetti, right? Just trying to keep things going. Tell us about the early, was it Mash-ape, correct?
Mash-ape, exactly. So yeah, as a matter of fact, it's a quite interesting story. It begins when these two Italian friends, Augusto Marietti, our CEO, and Marco Palladino, our CTO, they came to the United States and decided to found this company called Mash-ape. That was around 10 years ago. Mash-ape was a focus on building an API marketplace application at that time. But then they realized that, two things. Number one, they realized that there wasn't an API management platform good enough to support the throughput they were already experiencing. Number two, they saw that the real value of the whole solution was at the API gateway layer, not at the API marketplace application layer. So because of all this, they decided to sell the marketplace and then keep on and move on with the API gateway. And that's how Kong was born. And then the name Kong, as you can imagine, is related to Mash-ape. Right? Mash-ape has a jungle theme related to it. And then they decided to move on with this theme. Kong is a gorilla, as a matter of fact, that will be the strongest ape of the species. That's the story behind it.
It's a great name. Stay with me here. This is going to be very cheesy. The moment that I knew that joining Kong was the right thing to do for me was when I discovered the puns channel in Slack. It is full of everything that is exactly how you imagine. But we do things like our internal intranet is not Confluence, it is Kongfluence. When somebody achieves some kind of victory or joins the company, we say congratulations. I think the name itself conveys so much wonderful imagery, but so much potential for humor that that those of us who like those kinds of jokes do put into a lot of the things that we do.
It's a jungle out there, Melissa.
There, that it is, Mike.
It is.
So tell us about. So we're gonna have some video demos here that Claudio has put together.
Yeah.
How's your traction on GitHub?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Kind of, So then the Kong project, the open source project, kind of, a massive adoption all over the world. Recently, we reached the historical number of 200 million downloads. That's for the open source project. And then, in terms of GitHub, for instance, we have reached the number of 40K stars. Again, a very successful open source project. And yeah, that's it.
Okay. And Melissa, you were talking about the Slack channels and the puns, and why don't you tell us about the acronym for the company culture? What's that about?
Yeah, great question, Mike. So our logo is obviously Kong the gorilla. Kong the gorilla has a name. He is Groose. And these are our 5 company values. They stand for global. We are much like the gateway itself, which is used in 138 different countries, which is mental. As Kong as we represent 24 different countries, which is an incredible feeling. Pretty much every single call I get on, internally or externally, there'll be people joining from different countries or even different continents. Like even Mike, Claudia, between the 3 of us, we are representing 3 continents right now. It means you've got people who speak different languages, people who've got different experiences and backgrounds and different schools of thought. And this is such an enriching and creative environment to sit in. The other values are real. We're a bit of an overused word, but we are authentic. We are ourselves. We are, not afraid to be humans. We're unstoppable. We are customer obsessed. We want to achieve all of the outcomes by partnering with our customers, partnering with the open source community that they can achieve. The C, that is for champions. We strive to be the best. We set a very high bar, but an achievable bar for ourselves. And the E at the end is for explorers. Everybody's very curious about the world, intellectually curious. We're innovating. We are, we're not just doing API management. We're saying APIs are dead. We're doing something different because that is what connectivity needs. We are really exploring and peeling back the layers of the onion and questioning the assumptions to make sure that actually what we do, what we focus on, what we say are all the right things, not just the things that people are used to hearing.
Okay, so how about let's kind of crank up the technical discussion here. How are you guys doing it? What is it that you folks are specifically doing to help with the business impact, with the human impact, around how APIs have changed?
That's a great question. I think maybe I'll take half of that question and then hand over to Claudio to delve into the technology as well. From a business perspective, I think pretty much all business leaders, regardless of which domain they're in, are aware that joining the API economy, being API first, thinking about APIs is not just a nice to have, but a must have. This is because, we're all familiar with the nice shiny term of digital transformation. We are trying to power digital experiences for our customers, for our employees. We are businesses that are composed of digital assets. All of this is underpinned by that connectivity, underpinned by APIs and microservices that are that bridge between those different applications. And by powering this connectivity through APIs, you can accelerate your time to market. You can improve your operational efficiency. This is because you need to build for consumption, right? You need to make sure that these services that internal developers or external developers build are well designed, that they are reliable, that they are secured, and also that they are then discoverable, that you can access them. And therefore, this contributes to a reuse rather than rebuild mindset. Obviously, there's a bit of culture change that goes along with that, but the end result, if you do it right, is that you end up already having built a huge amount of work on your projects before you've even begun, because there are these APIs in place that you can easily find and access and then reuse. You don't spend time rebuilding stuff. And then on the other half of it, there's a very valid focus right now on data privacy and security. And if we have no visibility, no control over how our data is moving between different systems, between different locations, then each one of these endpoints is a security risk. So by powering APIs, by securing them with a platform like Kong, you can ensure that every single one of these connection points is managed, that it's well secured, that you actually are compliant with not just the regulations of the company that you yourself sit in, but the regulations of every single nation or locality where you've got data running as well. So from a business perspective, APIs are the critical enabler for providing better experiences at a lower cost, the lower risk. I think, should we turn over, get into a bit more of the cases, I think?
I think so. That would be good.
I think a good segue into this is, obviously there is a valid need still for the traditional API management that we became familiar with 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago. But we, like you said at the beginning, it's a controversial statement. We are saying that API management is dead. In fact, our CEO, Ivy, he stood up at our summit a couple of years ago and opened up the event with this statement. The rationale here is that we used to think of APIs as RESTful services that sat in our DMZ or next to our ESB and exposed data in a nice, pretty JSON format to the web. It's all about that edge gateway management. But this is a subset of the use cases that we see today. Probably that's a good place to start off, Claudio. This is still a valid use case. The platforms in which this needs to run, though, that has changed. Maybe go into that a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, from the technical perspective, to put it simple, you cannot solve new problems with old technology. That's the truth. And then, in the past, for instance, customers used to have a single platform, a runtime, to run all the platforms. All the platforms were confined in a single runtime. But this time, because of several reasons, cloud computing, microservice phenomenon, customers are going to other places. They want to run their applications in as a container, for instance. In other words, to run Docker. And then going a little bit further to run Kubernetes. Cloud number one, cloud number two. In other words, to have these multi-cloud deployments. So what it's saying is that differently than we had in the past, exactly the same application, logically speaking, is not confined in the single runtime, but this time is being spread out across multiple runtimes at the same time. And yes, you're going to have components of these applications, running on-premise. At the same time, other components running on Docker, other components running on cloud, Kubernetes, and so on and so forth. And then again, still have exactly the same application. That's the way it is. That's the way it should be. So, and then another comment regarding it, then considering what we had in the past, again, a single runtime and the same, responsible for running and solving all these technology requirements. This time, in that time, very, very easy to go, the customers wanted to implement a new protocol, a new platform, a new architecture pattern, a new deployment, and so on. Usually the answer for these were like, I am so sorry, this product over here doesn't support this protocol this time, maybe next year, because they're supposed to be available in next version. We are about to launch next year, this kind of thing. Not anymore. Today, what we're seeing is that customer, first of all, they are adopting these agile methodologies. At the same time, they are building very strong DevOps teams, very strong architecture teams, and then these teams are looking for best of breed in terms of technology options offered by the marketplace today. So kind of, and then again, we're not talking about, your logical application, your application being, being deployed in a highly distributed environment, spread it out in multiple runtimes at the same time, but then again, the multi-vendor deployment. Kind of, again, customers are looking for the best of breed option to market. That is exactly where Kong is inserted currently, in these new ecosystems. So, and then that's why the API management, as we know it, it's, of course, it's still there. The API gateway is still there, playing the very, very critical, important role for the edge computing layer to protect your digital assets. But then again, not enough. You should have other points in your architecture to take care of the microservice communication and so on and so forth. So in a sense that, regardless where you are, you should have a service control point in your enterprise architecture to take care of the service consumption, take care of the microservice to microservice or service to service communication, if you will. That's why we think the API management, again, it's that. And we have to provide the next iteration for these new requirements, new platforms, and so forth. As a matter of fact, we position ourselves not just the API gateway vendor anymore, but instead a service control platform vendor.
So, containers have been around. Containers have been around for a very, very long time. I mean, I think mainframe.
Yep.
Solaris, but people weren't really using them because it was just really the orchestration tooling around that wasn't mature enough. And I think Docker did a lot to bring that forward. But CNCF ran a study, I think it was it this year, that showed that 84% of the people who responded to their study were now running containers in production. So how does that affect or impact the need for Kong API gateways, or does that complicate things, or does it make it easier?
Yeah, you broke up a bit, but I think you're back. So containers, you're back. So as a matter of fact, container based platform, I would say, for instance, from an installation standpoint, I would say that's the simplest deployment for us. We provide support. First of all, we provide official Docker images, and then we provide official Kubernetes support. As I said before, not just to have these images being deployed as Kubernetes pod container inside a pod, but as a matter of fact, to support Kubernetes is in a much broader sense, Helm charts, not just providing official container, official Docker images, but again to support Kubernetes as a whole, Helm charts, Knative, certificate manager, and so on and so forth. I would say again that Kubernetes is kind of straightforward deployment for us and fully supported.
Okay. Well, I know when we did our dry run, I think was it last week, and you were working on putting together some demos. And how did it go? And what do you have for us? I think you said you were going to work on a couple of them.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we brought some. To be more precise, we brought 4 videos, not that long, around 2 minutes long each. And then we wanted to show them just to illustrate what we've been talking about here. What is this new platform? What is the service control platform we're talking about? So let me go through them. So the first one, and then first of all, let me share my screen here. So here's the video. First of all, my beautiful OpenShift cluster running GCP, as you can see over here. And then the Kong API gateway.
It really is beautiful.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
You know,
Yes, it is. Yes.
you have to start every screen share session with the following words. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you see my
I
screen now?
actually wanted, and you guys can take this if you want. It was about 8 months ago, and everyone is always like, "Can you see my screen?" Yes, I wanted to make a T-shirt that had like that. It said on the front, "Can you see my screen?" With, like, the Red Hat
A good
logo,
idea.
and
Yeah.
I wanted to send it out to everyone in the company. And I think at the time, human resources felt that it wasn't sensitive to the challenging times. But
Yeah.
one of these days, I'm going to make a
Like-
T-shirt that says. One of these days, I'm going to make a T-shirt that says, "Can you see my screen?" Maybe even put it on
I'll
a
take
coffee
one.
mug.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, kind of fun. Yeah. So here again, my beautiful OpenShift cluster deployed in GCP, and then I got already some Kong runtimes already deployed. As you can see, you were asking about our operator. The operator, as a matter of fact, is deployed, already deployed, as well as the Kong for Kubernetes. So you can see there's an Ingress-Kong deployment in there. That's my Ingress controller. And then, as you can see, there's only one pod running this time. Here's the pod. But then again, I got in background, I got a loop injecting requests to my cluster. And then on your right, you can see Kong Vitals. Kong Vitals is one component we provide in our Kong Enterprise edition. Kong Vitals is responsible for keeping track of the main KPIs of the gateway, like the number of requests that have been processed, proxy latency, data upstream latency, data store caching, and so on. And then, as you can see over here, is my pod, the Ingress-Kong pod running. And then, as I said before, I'm already injecting some requests to my API gateway. But what I'd like to show you is that one nice capability provided by Kubernetes is scaling capability. Kind of imagine that you need to support a massive, much higher throughput this time. So you can go to OpenShift again, and then here's my pod, only one pod, and then I can scale the deployment out. This time, putting 3 pods to run. And then this time you can see on your right, Kong Enterprise dividers again, showing you 3 pods running and then taking care of the throughput I'm injecting this time. So and then again, similarly, we can reduce the number of pods along the way. So kind of a very, very, very nice scaling capability provided by Kubernetes. As you can see, I'm doing it manually. So Kubernetes brings another ability, which is what we call the HPA, horizontal pod outscaler. So this time, we're achieving elasticity. So the number of pods this time is going up or down depending on the traffic. But this time, automatically, you don't have to manually request for more pods or reduce the number of pods. And a very, very cool deployment. So as I said before, totally supported. This container and Kubernetes deployment totally supported. So, Melissa, any comments? Want to add any comments on this?
I think it's funny because a lot of the companies that we see and that we work with are still using and having to work out how to support APIs and services deployed in legacy environments, quote unquote legacy, or on-premise environments, their own data centers. But so many of those companies are also running Kubernetes, running containers, and pushing kind of at that other end of adoption. So we see a lot of use cases where it's not just focusing on the kind of the stuff that we saw a few years ago, or not just focusing on, the really nice shiny stuff, but actually use cases that have to span both ends of that spectrum. And I think this is where, going back to what you said a minute ago, Claudio, this is one of the reasons why I absolutely love our technology. It is the same, it is consistent, it is equally capable and performant in all of these different deployment environments. It's not Kubernetes specific. It is not VM specific. It is not cloud provider specific. It is exactly the same thing that you can deploy in each one of these distributed environments. So ultimately you end up with these kind of localized or federated like governance and security enforcement points. But then all of this visibility bubbles up to what is, to use the phrase, that single pane of glass that gives you visibility across that whole distributed ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Melissa,
Daniel, yeah, please go ahead, man.
no, I just, when we were talking, I think it was last week, you were saying about, how everything's constantly evolving and increasingly distributed landscapes, and that you need to be able to apply security and governance consistently everywhere. How does Kong help with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, please go ahead, Melissa.
We both love this topic.
You can each take turns. We're all friends here.
I mean, I know Cardio's prepared something to actually show. I think that will be a really great way of bringing that to life. But this is something I did. I presented this at an event we did last week. I was speaking to customers almost daily. This is the biggest challenge that I see companies struggling with today. It is how to ensure that there is consistent governance in terms of how the endpoints are secured and managed and the kinds of policies that are applied, but also that the API and microservice best practices are followed throughout the API and service lifecycle, that governance. So many companies are struggling with how to achieve that governance consistently across all of these federated development teams in different locations with different tools and processes, operating with all these different types of services, different protocols that all then fit within the different distributed infrastructure. Like it's chaos, right? So we enable APIOps, which is, if you're familiar with the term, this is GitOps applied to the API lifecycle. Probably see how animated I am. I think this is my favorite topic right now. The magic here is that when you are shifting to API first or an API driven business model and development approach, typically what companies do is to create an API platform team that acts as central governors that make sure that anything deployed to the platform has been checked for security, for best practice and all of that. And this is enabled typically by running like evangelism sessions, brown bag lunches, lunch and learns, road shows. Back when we could travel, I used to have a little Alexa that like take round to different offices. But the trouble with this approach is that this puts all of the onus straight onto the developer to make sure that they manually change how they work. They stay up to date with what best practices are, and that typically means reading some out-of-date page in Confluence that says this is how you should follow API best practices within our organization. So what we enable, this APIOps approach, this is going from that manual workflow to a self-serve automated one. This is using the fact that Kong supports declarative configuration in Insomnia from the very beginning of the design of your APIs, through to the deployment, through to the configuration of the different runtimes. This is using that single source of truth, the declarative configuration that is stored within Git, to power automated checks, automated deployments, automated everything across that lifecycle. Claudio, you want to take over?
Yeah, sure. And yeah, that will be, I would say, the most interesting video we brought. Like, to illustrate again a little bit more about these APIOps Lisa was talking about. Again, then again, share my screen again. Can you see my screen?
Claudio, I would be like the first person to say, yes, I can see your screen. I'd like
okay, good.
I'd like to just point at my t-shirt, but I can't do that. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, good. So here's the exactly the same. Yeah, let me start the video. So exactly the same API cluster in there. So then again, first of all, just a quick introduction. So my APIOps process is going to show you end-to-end API provisioning process. So kind of starting with the API spec edition, and then I'm using Git. As a matter of fact, Mike, I got inspired by the latest blog posts I read in the OpenShift websites, talking about this, like the OpenShift and GitHub, a GitHub Action integration. So again, I got inspired by that, and that's why I chose GitHub in order to implement my CI/CD pipeline in there. So again,
Hey, by the way, Claudio, thank you for that. My team's responsible for those blog posts. So if you ever want to, folks want to do a blog and with us and post it on OpenShift.com site, let me know. I think that would be really great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
And then again, great blog posts, as a matter of fact, great ones.
Oh, cut it out. You're already here on the site.
Oh, you guys.
You don't have to butter us up.
Okay, good. So again, beginning with the API spec editor, we're going to put the CI/CD pipeline in action, and then the CI/CD, of course, will be responsible for publishing not just the API spec to our API gateway runtimes, but also to publish the API documentation in our dev portal, in our Kong Enterprise dev portal. And then, of course, dev portal will be responsible for exposing the documentation to the developers and so on and so forth. So let me use my GitHub repository over here. This is my on my oops, and this is Insomnia Designer. As I said before, beginning with Insomnia Designer, which is the API spec editor, kind of and that's the tool the API designer is supposed to use to craft, to define, to enhance the API spec they'll be working on. And then, first of all, I'm going to send some requests to the API gateway just to make just to show there's nothing there. The API gateway is totally there's no API deployed. There's nothing there. Yeah. So and then API the Sony Design API spec editor. There's a linting process running in the background. So every time I got a syntax error, I'm gonna get a warning saying, I'm learning about these syntax error, and then of course I'll have to get it correct. At the same time, on my right, you can see the visual presentation of my API spec. And so then again, in my left, you can see the Open API 3.0 spec, and then on my right, the visual presentation of it. Not just the visual presentation, but actually you can try the API out, send a request to it, and so on. Another important capability provided by the editor is the capability to inject some Kong extensions in order to define policies. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna deploy this API over here along with two policies at the same time. The first policy, as you can see up here, the rate limiting policy, is gonna define a 3-minute rate limiting policy, meaning that I'm supposed to send only 3 requests at a given minute to the API gateway. And then the second policy, that's the another integration point with the OpenShift, more precisely the keycloak. So in order to consume this API, I am supposed to send keycloak credentials. Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible to consume it. So yeah. So here's I'm injecting these policies over here. And then another capability provided by the editor is the possibility to integrate the Git-based repository. As I said before, I'm using GitHub. Is my credential, my GitHub credentials. And then every time I commit a new version for my API spec, and I push it to the GitHub repository, I'm gonna get the CI/CD pipeline in action. So here's my GitHub action this time. So we are going to get it started in a moment. So then again, just because I push it, a new version from my API, I'm gonna get the GitHub in action. Here's my GitHub action in action again, and then I can check it out, all the steps, and then again the CI/CD implemented by GitHub Action will be responsible for publishing the API spec to my API gateway. Not just the API itself, but then again the documentation. So right after having the CI/CD pipeline done, I can see the new services, new route, new plugins. The plugins, consider a plugin as an extension for the API gateway. So each one of these plugins again is responsible for a given policy. As I showed you before, like two policies, the rate limiting policy and the OpenID Connect policy with the Keycloak integration is already there, deployed and configured for me. Likewise, here's my developer portal, and here's my exactly the same API spec deployed documentation, this time deployed and available for my developers. So I'm going back to the editor, and then this time I'll be able to send requests to my API, finally. But since I got the Keycloak integration, I am supposed to send Keycloak credentials. Otherwise, again, it wouldn't be possible to consume the API. So let's say I'm going to send wrong credentials, Keycloak. I am supposed to get a 401 error code, meaning that Keycloak didn't like them, and therefore the API gateway is not allowing me to consume the API. So once I provide the right credentials, I'll be able to not just to get authenticated by Keycloak, but as a matter of fact to consume the API. And then we're going to see the second policy in action, the rate limiting policy. I'm supposed to send only 3 requests a given minute. So if I try to send more than 3 in a given minute, I'm supposed to get a 429, meaning that I have reached the rate limiting policy. So that's that's the video, like to show a very quick demonstration of the APIOps process, provisioning process.
Well, now that now that everyone knows exactly what your Gmail email address is, I wrote it down when I think it was when you were logging in. How do you how can people get in touch with Kong? I mean, I'm guessing they don't want to send email to your Gmail. Do you guys have a Claudio @ or is there like a it? Usually we do this at the closing, but I figured I'd sneak it in right here, seeing as your Gmail address was just all over the screen there.
Yeah. So again, you can get in contact using my email, my corporate email. If you will, can use my personal one. My Kong email is exactly my name, claudio@konghq.com. And then if you go to our official website, konghq.com, you have multiple resources. For instance, one nice resource available is that our calendar for virtual events. Like we just had our destination event, totally focused on security. We call them Zero Trust Network Destination event. And then not just our own events, but as a matter of fact, other well-known events like KubeCon and so on and so forth. And then just for the technical audience, I really invite you guys to go to our GitHub repositories. A massive collection of information, technical guides, documentation, source codes, and so on and so forth.
Okay. And if anyone didn't get any of that, they can send me an email address. It's just wait@redhat.com, and I can get you connected with them. So we're coming up on the top of the hour. We still have some more time here. I think you had didn't you have a service mesh demo that you wanted to run?
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up, Mike. I was like, right, we've got one more thing that I really want to make sure that we've got time to talk about. I keep I guess, speaking about the differences, right, between API management a few years ago and API management or service management as it is today. API management a few years ago was only really focused on one connectivity pattern, and that was API management at the edge. So typically at the edge of our network, we host it ourselves in our DMZ, or we use some kind of cloud solution that is a centralized deployment in the cloud that we then push all of our API requests. This is one of 3 key connectivity patterns. The second one is powering application to application connectivity. That is internal API and service management. For example, you have a product domain within your business that releases APIs as services that are consumable by other teams across the same business. So people working within the customer domain can reuse APIs that the product team have shared with them, but they are not externally consumable. The third connectivity pattern is the hot topic really across our industry of the service mesh, right? This is we're breaking down our monolith into microservices, and we need for that overall large application to be comprised of all those tiny little chunks of code that talk to each other. And the service mesh provides that security, provides that traffic management, provides the load balancing to ensure that all of these little nodes that need to talk to each other can do so reliably and effectively. Claudio, I really should stop talking and let you show it.
Yeah, the service mesh architecture pattern, kind of very, very important. Like, again, we're not talking about the external traffic coming to your microservices architecture, but instead, different traffic, internal traffic we've got internally, service mesh or microservice architecture. Kind of, very, very important to keep in mind. And, talking about microservices, talking about multiple instances at the same time, multiple runtime at the same time. So kind of, this microservice to microservice communication, it's not a straightforward topic to address. And you have to deal with the circuit breakers, load balancing, health checks, a mutual TLS. You have to encrypt the tunnel with these microservice communication as well. So again, we're not, it's not an easy test to implement. And then service mesh is exactly addressing this kind of requirements, technical requirements.
Cool.
So,
hey, we got, I mentioned we're live on YouTube and Facebook and Twitch. We've got some questions that just came in from YouTube. I want to bring this up here, if I may. So I don't know if this is from Melissa or Claudio, but in context, are we talking about Kong on OS deployment or Kong integrated with the operating system? In the latter case, does that, sorry, don't have my readers on. In the latter case, does that do for the model ingress service routes?
Yeah, I can take this one. I think OS in this context is OpenShift. That's my understanding. I might be wrong. But yeah, if it is, yes, you're totally right. I mean, what is Kong running OpenShift? Kong is an OpenShift deployment implementing the Ingress controller spec, the Kubernetes Ingress controller spec. In this sense, we're totally following the Ingress controller specification. So yes, we provide CRDs in order to define an ingress, to modify an ingress, to apply policies to the ingress using exactly the same plugins I showed you before, like authentication policy, a rate limiting policy, and so on and so forth. Yeah, absolutely. We follow the service route ingress model as we again in these OpenShift deployment, as you referring to.
Thank you. We just got one more. Just came in from Facebook. I want to get it out there. Is there a position on Kong service mesh versus, say, a podded OS4 Istio model?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we provide the Kong specific service mesh implementation. It's called Kong Mesh. It's totally based on Kuma. It's a second open source project that started as a Kong open source project. A couple of months ago, we donated to CNCF. Yes, currently it is a CNCF project. And then again, Kong Mesh is responsible for implementing service mesh implementation. Some differences when comparing to guys like Istio, for instance, much easier to manage, deploy, to configure, and so on and so forth. other difference, very, very important difference. We're totally fine implementing your service mesh in a hybrid environment, not just using Kubernetes, but again, service meshing, defining your service mesh in a multi platform deployment, like services running in Kubernetes, services running in non-Kubernetes cluster, and still being part of exactly the same service mesh environment. So yeah, that will be it.
Okay. Well, I'm getting notified by our producer that, Mike, it's time to wrap it up. I was trying to see if we could go over a couple minutes, but we can't right now. So hopefully we can have you folks back on again. I'm going to do what I like to say. What I like to say is I like to share my screen. And I'm going to pop this up here. So thank you for coming today. If anyone wants to know more about Kong, you can see the link here on the screen. I was going to say click on it, but I don't think that'll work. And then, of course, you've got bizdev at konghq.com. Love to have you back, Claudio. If you want to be a part of our blog postings and so forth, let me know. You've got my contact information.
Absolutely.
Melissa,
gonna be fun.
Melissa, thank you for joining us today. I hope you had a good time.
Thank you for having us, Mike. This has been so much fun. And please promise me, as soon as you release your t-shirts, I would like one. Thank you.
I'm gonna try again.
Yeah, same thing here.
I'm gonna try again. We're very conservative, but I got my fingers crossed. So, anyways, you folks can stay on the bridge if you want, but we're gonna wrap it up for the day. Michael Waite for the OpenShift Commons briefings, our operator hours, and we do this every Wednesday at 1 o'clock Eastern. So please join us. Thank you.